Can a legendary song still be legendary if its secret came from someone else's record? The 1960s gave us rebellion, genius, and some of the most beloved hits ever made. But behind the golden choruses were older melodies, forgotten folk songs, blues lyrics, gospel roots, and legal battles that changed music history. These songs were not always stolen in the legal sense, but they were copied, borrowed, adapted, or built too close to another sound to ignore. Number 10. I Can't Explain. The Who, 1965. The Who's first big punch may have started with another band's fist. I Can't Explain sounded fresh, angry, and impatient. Exactly the kind of record that could introduce a dangerous new group. But Pete Townsend was clearly chasing the brutal guitar energy of the Kinks' You Really Got Me. That same raw power chord attack, that same teenage pressure, that same garage rock bite was already shaking Britain. This was not a courtroom theft case, but it was imitation loud enough to become history. The twist is that while trying to catch the Kinks' lightning, The Who accidentally created the first spark of their own legend. Number 9. A Lover's Concerto, The Toys, 1965. This innocent love song had a secret older than rock and roll itself. A Lover's Concerto sounded like a polished 60s girl group hit, full of romance, harmony, and radio sweetness. But the melody came from Minuet in G major, an 18th century classical piece long linked to Bach and now commonly credited to Christian Petzold. The Toys did not invent that unforgettable tune. They dressed it in teenage emotion and turned it into pop gold. Most listeners had no idea they were singing along to music from another century. It was not scandalous theft, but it proves that even new hits can wear ancient bones. Number 8. A Whiter Shade of Pale, Procol Harum, 1967. This was not just a song. It sounded like a ghost entering the charts. A Whiter Shade of Pale became unforgettable because of that haunting organ line. She said there is no reason. A sound so grand and mournful it felt pulled from a cathedral. The music carried heavy Bach-style fingerprints, especially the classical mood people connect with air on the G string. Shade of pale. Since that influence came from public domain classical music, this was not simple, illegal copying. But the real fight came later, when organist Matthew Fisher argued that his part was the soul of the record. He eventually won recognition. When we call out for... The song stayed beautiful, but its genius had more than one owner. Number 7. The Last Time, The Rolling Stones, 1965. The Rolling Stones made The Last Time sound like pure rock swagger, but its roots were much older and much holier. Under the sharp guitars and Mick Jagger's confident delivery was the shadow of This May Be the Last Time, a traditional gospel song associated with the Staple Singers. The Stones hardened it, sped it up, and sold it as British rock attitude. But the strangest part came decades later, when an orchestral version helped create the Verve's Bittersweet Symphony, leading to a massive royalty battle. That is the irony. A song built from old gospel DNA later became a weapon in someone else's copyright war. Number 6. Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You, Led Zeppelin, 1969. Led Zeppelin made this song sound like ancient heartbreak exploding into thunder. Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You moved from whisper to storm, from folk sorrow to heavy rock violence. But the song was not simply traditional, as many believed for years.
There's not a single.
It was written by folk singer Anne Breeden, whose name nearly vanished while Zeppelin's version became world famous. That is what makes this story uncomfortable.
When it's calling.
The louder version did not just transform the song, it almost buried the original writer beneath its own power. Later, Breeden received credit, but the mystery had already become part of the legend. This was beauty with a missing name. Number 5. Hello, I Love You. The Doors, 1968. The Doors turned Obsession into a radio hit, but the riff sounded suspiciously familiar. Hello, I Love You had Jim Morrison's cool, seductive voice on top, yet underneath it was a driving attack many listeners linked to the Kinks' All Day and All of the Night. That blunt rhythm, that push-forward guitar feeling, that same aggressive pulse made the comparison impossible to ignore. The Doors had their own dark identity, but this track walked dangerously close to another band's territory. Whether you call it copying, borrowing, or coincidence, one thing is clear. Once you hear the two songs together, the shadow does not go away. Number 4. Come Together, The Beatles, 1969. Even the Beatles were not above leaving fingerprints. Come Together sounded like John Lennon at his coolest, slow, swappy, strange, and untouchable. But its starting point reached back to Chuck Berry's You Can't Catch Me, especially the famous flat top lyric and the bluesy atmosphere. Lennon reshaped it into something darker and more mysterious, but the connection was strong enough to trigger legal trouble from publisher Morris Levy. That is what makes this case so powerful. The Beatles were the biggest band in the world, yet even they were still building on the architects who came before them. Genius does not always begin from nothing. Number 3. Whole Lotta Love, Led Zeppelin, 1969. One of rock's most explosive riffs carried an old blues debt inside it. Whole Lotta Love sounded like Led Zeppelin inventing a heavier future with that monstrous guitar and Robert Plant's wild vocal energy. But the song's lyrical roots reached back to Willie Dixon's You Need Love, recorded by Muddy Waters. Zeppelin did what many British rock bands did. They took black American blues, amplified it, distorted it, and sold it to a massive new audience. The problem was credit. Legal action later led to Dixon receiving recognition. So yes, Whole Lotta Love is still a rock landmark, but it is also a reminder that thunder often echoes. Number 2. Dazed and Confused, Led Zeppelin, 1969. This is not just a copying story. It feels like a song disappearing into smoke. Dazed and Confused became one of Led Zeppelin's darkest early statements, slow, heavy, hypnotic, and dangerous. But folk singer Jake Holmes had already written and performed his own Dazed and Confused in 1967. Jimmy Page encountered the song during his Yardbirds years, and the idea later evolved into Zeppelin's famous version. For years, Page received sole credit, while Holmes remained almost invisible to mainstream rock fans. That is what makes the case so haunting. The Zeppelin version became immortal, but the original voice was nearly erased. Number 1. Surfin' USA, The Beach Boys, 1963. The brightest song on this list hides the clearest borrowing. Surfin' USA sounded like California youth culture exploding into sunshine. Beaches, boards, cars, and endless summer. But under that clean harmony was Chuck Berry's Sweet Little 16 engine.
surfing USA.
Brian Wilson changed the lyrics, turned school dances into surf locations, and gave the song a new coastal identity. But the melody was too close to ignore. Eventually, Chuck Berry received credit, making this one of the most famous borrowing stories in 60s pop. That is why it belongs at number 1. The song still feels joyful, but beneath the sand, Chuck Berry was already there. So were these songs stolen, borrowed, adapted, or transformed? The truth depends on the case, and that is what makes the story addictive. Some became lawsuits, some became credit battles, some came from folk, gospel, blues, or classical music. But one thing is clear, the 1960s did not just create music history. Sometimes it rewrote someone else's.